The summer after my senior year of college, my best friend Curtis and I had a pretty normal idea. Get in a car and drive across the country.
When you're 22 and on the road, you're supposed to feel like you have your whole life ahead of you. But we'd just heard some rather disconcerting news. For the first time in American history, our generation was at risk of having a shorter lifespan than our parents. And it was because of what we ate.
So we started to keep track of what we were eating. In 4,200 miles, 54 meals, and 97 snack breaks, we acquired a lot of new data about American road cuisine. We're late.
Let me figure out here. You're Ian.
Yes.
I'm looking at your hair. And Kurt.
Yeah.
So hair is a continuous recorder. It's a tape recorder of diet. And so this hamburger that becomes part of my diet will eventually find its way into my hair. Actually called an elemental analyzer. There it is. There it is. See that big red? That's the detector over here on the elemental analyzer. All right. Well, I've analyzed your hair, and the real conclusion is that the carbon in your bodies really originates from corn.
From corn.
When I'm talking about corn, I'm not talking about corn on the cob, sweet corn. I'm talking about the corn that's being used as a material that's going into the foods that we use ubiquitously. The apple juices and the grape juices that are canned and they say sweetened, and that's going to be a high fructose corn syrup. And then you look down the meats, beefs and porks, chickens. You feed them corn, and that gets turned into their biomass that we consume. And you walk down the cookie aisle.
Cornstarch, corn gluten meal, hydrolyzed corn protein, cornstarch,
High fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup.
Corn King bacon.
For Americans that I've run the isotope analysis on, those numbers are showing this huge weight of the influence of corn.
Mr. Charles Pyatt, 2637 Floyd Line Street, Green, Iowa, 50636. Dear Mr. Pyatt, I hope December finds you well. We got your name from a Corn Growers Association. They suggested you were the kind of guy who might be willing to help us out with a rather unusual idea. We recently learned that people who grew up eating the way we did are basically made out of corn. What the heck? We're writing with a strange proposal. We want to move to Iowa and plant a single acre of corn on your land. We don't know a thing about corn. Seems like a good time to find out. Sincerely, Ian Cheney and Curtis Ellis.
I'm moving from Boston to Iowa. Yeah, I'm gonna grow an acre of corn and see what happens with it. What's up with you? How's your high-paying job?
Ian and I had grown up on the coast, but for some reason, we felt drawn to the Midwest.
Can I have the biscuits and with gravy?
Maybe it was because a long time before there was corn in our hair, there was corn in our genes. By incredible coincidence, Ian and I each had a great-grandfather from the same tiny county in rural Iowa.
Three generations after our great-grandparents left, we were moving back to find out how an acre of corn could get from a field in Iowa into our hair.
Well, my dad bought this farm back in the Depression, back in 36, I think. My grandparents lived on the next one down east over here, and they moved in there in 1900.
Is it always this cold?
Well, sometimes it gets chillier. This isn't cold. That's what it looks like.
Where do you think our acre ought to be?
Right out in here, and
How big's an acre?
an acre, half, I guess probably about 8 rows here,
Okay.
something like that. Would make all the way through, as far as you can see, 8 rows would make an acre.
So from here, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Green, Iowa. Population 1,015. It seemed like we'd been in town 10 minutes, and people already knew what we were up to.
I mean, I've heard people talking about it. You guys were gonna plant some corn and kind of watch it grow, I guess.
Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. You know, I remember when he was that big.
You do?
I'm a very old man.
I think he was living in Boston then.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Green looked like a lot of Midwestern farm towns. But for us, this place was different. 100 years ago, it was the home of Melvin W. Ellis and Claire Eugene Cheney, people we knew almost nothing about.
Dear friend, was very glad to hear from you. Everything is the same as usual at the store. That 6 o'clock dinner was something great, all right.
1,000 miles away from where we'd grown up, it was hard to imagine that Iowa had once been home.
There's some Alice's over here in the C section, and then there's Cheney's over in that section over there on the other side of the road.
It's the strangest of coincidences that Ian and I became friends, and our families come from this tiny, tiny town in the middle of the country together.
People have moved away and have forgotten about the basic tenets of their existence, you know. If they really come back and smell the roses, it's all right here. The farmer's cooperative elevator is a very significant part of our economy
Why is it called an elevator?
because you had to have some form of an elevator shaft or whatever to get the corn back up in so they could store it. Remember, I'm not a farmer, I'm a funeral director. We do plant things sometimes, but
And what is this here?
that's excess corn. That's our overage of corn this year. The elevator's full.
So does this just get thrown out, or?
No, that'll all be shipped out this spring.
But that's what couldn't fit in that huge thing.
That's right.
Does that happen every year?
Well, it has the last few years.
If you were given the power to design an ideal place to grow the corn crop with all of its requirements and all of its characteristics, you would design something that looked very much like Iowa.
Ricardo Salvador is an agronomist at Iowa State University. He agreed to show us the plant we would be growing.
So what you're looking at here is a grass plant. So it's a very close relative in exactly the same family as the stuff that you have growing in your lawn. This is obviously a gigantic version of those grasses.
Our 1-acre lawn would be growing a giant grass whose ancestors looked very different. Native corn originated in southern Mexico, but found a happy home in Iowa, a land of fertile soils and humid summers. Gradually, one type of corn replaced all the others, a versatile crop named Yellow Dent No. 2, which over time came to dominate the entire middle of the country.
We are at the world's only corn palace. We welcome you here and hope you enjoy the time while you're here. There we go. What you see right here is a picture of the very first corn palace. It was opened in 1892 as a way to show people how we grow things and to get people to come and live here.
We had a pretty good idea of what living on a farm would look like. Driving tractors, digging in the dirt, growing food.
You can't live without corn. I mean, it's an everyday part of your life. You don't even realize it.
The Corn Palace was a kind of monument to America's favorite crop and to its love of family farms. Maybe even 1-acre farms like ours.
You got to follow your dream and give it your best shot, really. Everything starts out as a dream.
Hey. It was going to be a long time before we could do anything we'd thought of as farming. But on the modern farm, you don't have to wait for the snow to melt before you can get to work.
Got nothing.
This looks like clay.
The first thing you should really understand is what the farm program is. And it's a very complicated program we have now.
Okay, so you got corn, you got 1 acre, here's your base.
Well, here we've got a chart that shows that the direct payment on corn is going to be 28 cents.
Payment from
the U.S. government. Whether you like it or not, it's part of growing corn.
Did or will you plant or produce an agricultural commodity on land for which a highly erodible determination has not been made?
$29. So you're going to get 14 now, and you'll get 14 in October.
I don't know of a single farm out here that isn't in the government program. I'll guarantee you, if you go out and just raise an acre of corn without any government payments, you're going to lose money.
Really?
Definitely.
Just for moving to Green and telling the government we were going to plant an acre of corn, we were going to get $28. And the more corn you grow, the more money you get. We should have grown 1,000 acres.
I just found this the other day, and now I got somebody to show it to.
It didn't take long to find relatives in Green. Dawn Cheney, the widow of my third cousin, Paul Cheney, lived on the same farm where my great-grandfather grew up.
There's his plane. Uncle Claire's plane.
Claire Cheney, my great-grandfather, had what looked like a typical childhood on the farm.
There's the silo and there's the hog house.
On the old Cheney farm, they grew almost all the food they ate, and it looked a lot like the kind of farm we'd grown up imagining.
Ray Cheney.
You think I look like these folks?
Sure you do. You're a Cheney.
You're a Cheney. Now there's the barn.
The Cheney farm was supported through the years by farm subsidies, an earlier version of the program we'd signed up for. In those days, the government supported family farms by stabilizing the amount of corn produced each year. This sometimes meant taking land out of production. With supply and demand in balance, crop prices stayed high. For years, the program kept farms like the Cheneys afloat by limiting the amount of grain that got to market. But in 1973, a new Secretary of Agriculture, Earl L. Butz, reoriented the farm program.
What we want out of agriculture is plenty of food, and that's our drive now. We have experienced a 180-degree turn in the philosophy of our farm programs. We've abandoned the long-time philosophy of curtailment and cut back to the new philosophy of expansion. And it makes sense.
On the Cheney land, the old tomato gardens and pastures are now planted almost entirely in corn as part of a neighbor's grain operation. Even our acre is actually part of a much larger farm, run by another neighbor named Rich Johnson.
Well, I grew up a half a mile just south of this corner here. We farm that up there. And then this is George Uhlenhop. We farm his land right here. And then this is my mom's farm. We farm that. And that's our other grain farm right up there with the big bins on it. So that's another farm of ours. The farmers are, the ones that are in it are getting bigger. You either have to be in it and a pretty good size or you kind of get squeezed out.
January soybeans at 5.45, down 1 3/4, and May soybeans at 5.48, down 1 1/4 cents.
There's 3 fungicides and an insecticide. What do corn growers really want? More corn. Way, way more corn. Go where no one's gone before. More corn. That's more like it. Comprised of 4 separate registered products.
Kurt Ellis.
Hey, Ian Cheney.
Hi, Ian. Al Marth.
How you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
What can I help you with today?
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer. Okay. What kind of ground are you guys working on? Is it a sandier type soil?
I haven't done any analysis of it. It's a basic brown.
Okay. Essentially, the crop needs nutrients to in order to produce the maximum yield, and you want to have the biggest potential out there to get the biggest yield you can. Past couple of years, we've had probably 200 bushel corn around here, and we like that a lot. So, there you go.
Thanks. You look like a farmer now.
Staying right in this area, you'll probably get a good smell of the ammonia.
Oh, yeah. God, it's just like, that's wild. Any advice for driving with this thing?
Yeah, don't hit anything. That's a bad thing.
Okay, we know that there's 43,560 square feet in an acre. And we're going to try to mark out 1 acre for corn.
So I push this forward?
Yeah, push it forward.
Verify. All right, we're up. All right. Are you kidding? Sure.
Well, you want to go another round?
Yeah, but slower maybe.
No, we got to go this speed. Here's the brake.
Oh, where's the brake?